Now let's look at France. It's had another setback, this time in Central Africa. Yesterday it lost its last remaining base in the Sahel region. It has been asked to get out of Chad. Chad is a country in Central Africa. It was once a French colony like a lot of other African nations. Chad became autonomous on 28 November 1958 and it became fully independent 2 years later in 1960. But the 28th of November is still a special date in Chad. It marks an important step towards freedom, which is why Chad chose yesterday, the 28th of November, to break with France again. Their government put out this notice. It terminated a defense agreement. The agreement allowed France to deploy troops in Chad. But now Chad has torn it up, which means French troops deployed there will have to leave. There are 1,000 French soldiers deployed here. They will have to start packing up soon. But how did this happen? What led to this? Look at the timing. The French foreign minister has just concluded his visit to Chad. He met with Chad's president, Mohamed Deby. We don't know what they discussed, but right after that meeting, Chad tore up the defense pact. Their foreign minister said, and I'm quoting, France must now also consider that Chad has grown up, matured, and is a sovereign state that is very jealous of its sovereignty. It's an understandable reason why should Western powers station their troops in former colonies. Imagine if the British left thousands of soldiers in India. If British troops remained here decades after India's independence, it wouldn't have been acceptable to us. So we do understand wanting to guard sovereignty, but this is only one part of the story. There are two more. To understand the second part, we need to zoom in. France had many colonies in Africa. Let's show you a belt stretching from Chad all the way to Mauritania. All these former colonies hosted French troops. They were all part of a security grouping called the G5 Sahel. All these former French colonies were dealing with a common problem, terrorism. That was France's justification to deploy troops. But they failed to fix the problem. They failed to contain the terrorist groups. So slowly the African nations started getting annoyed. 3 of them recently had coups: Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. Their militaries overthrew the civilian governments and then they kicked out the French troops as well. These coup-hit Sahel nations blame France for their terror problem. They say the French troops were not doing enough. And ordinary people seem to agree because anti-France sentiment has been brewing in the Sahel. It's prevalent in Chad as well. And this may have contributed to the government's decision. The third and the last reason for this break may have been Russia. Moscow has been courting African nations, especially former French colonies. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger have all switched allies. They kicked out the French and they brought in the Russians. Russian mercenaries to help the military juntas. And Chad has a similar situation. President Mohamed Deby is the son of a military dictator. His father, Idriss Deby, ruled for 30 years. Mohamed took over after he died. He orchestrated a coup and then held what is called a questionable election to consolidate power. So Deby may also want some Russian support to shore up his legitimacy. Russia has been reaching out to Chad. They've signed a few deals and a broader alliance is definitely possible. All these factors have influenced Chad's latest move: the desire for sovereignty, the anti-France sentiment, and the desire for Russian support. Chad was France's last stronghold in the Sahel. Now it has fallen. And France's troubles may not be over yet. There are rumblings from another former French colony, Senegal. Senegal's president has also taken aim at French troops. He says their time is almost up. So it looks like things will get worse for Paris in the days to come.